One of the most important concepts that a travel agent needs to understand is the concept of time zone. It is very important to understand this concept because you're constantly dealing with arrival times, departure times, and connecting times. So this is of paramount importance that you get a clear picture of what time zone means. Now, India and US are right across, they're across the globe. So when it is nighttime in India, it is daytime in US. So let's take a date, for example. Let us take 5th May. Now, if you look at this map, let's say Chicago is it's in the pink zone, which is Central Time Zone. Let's say if it is, which is also, Chicago happens to be our headquarters also. Now, when it is 9 a.m. in the morning, 5th May in Chicago, it is already 7:30 p.m. 5th May in India. So basically, India is ahead of Chicago by 10 and a half hours. That's why when it is 9 a.m. in Chicago in the morning, it is already 7:30 p.m. the same day in the evening in India. Now, India, whether you're located in Kolkata or whether you're located in Mumbai, it doesn't really matter. If it is 4:30 p.m. in Kolkata, it is 4:30 p.m. in Bombay also at the same time. That is because India has only got one time zone. But the same is not true with the United States. There are 5 time zones in the US. In fact, there are some countries in the world where there are 8 to 9 time zones. The best example of which would be Russia. Russia has got about 8 time zones. Canada has got about 6. In the US, there are about 5 time zones. 4 of them are very important, but I'll explain all the 5 time zones. The first time zone is the Eastern Standard Time Zone, which is highlighted in kind of gray here. The next one is Central Standard Time, that is highlighted in pink. Next one is Mountain Standard Time, which is highlighted in light blue here. The next one is Pacific Standard Time, that is highlighted in yellow. And the final one is Alaskan Standard Time, which is kind of, again, in slight grayish color here. But the most important time zones are these 4, the Eastern, the Central, the Mountain, and the Pacific Standard Times. Now, so when it is, for example, 2 p.m., you can see the picture here. When it is 2 p.m. in the afternoon in Eastern time, for example, you can take New York as the example city. When it is 2 p.m. in the afternoon in New York, it is 11 a.m. in the morning in Los Angeles, which is in the Pacific time zone. So basically, New York is ahead of Los Angeles by 3 hours. Now, coming back to the difference between India and US, when somebody asks you a question, what is the time difference between India and US, you have to first look at what is the reference time zone in the US. For example, the time difference between Central Time and India is 10 and a half hours. But if you're looking at a time difference between, say, New York, which is in the Eastern time zone, the time difference between Eastern Standard Time and India is only 9.5 hours. Now, let us illustrate the importance of these time zones by giving you an example and why you should be thoroughly clear about, you should be thorough about the time zones and the time differences between India and US. Let's say somebody wants to fly from Chicago to Delhi here. And let us take the same example of 5th May. The Air India flight departs from Chicago at 1:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on the 5th of May. And the actual flying hours from Chicago to Delhi are 15 hours approximately. So when it takes off at 1:30 p.m. on 5th of May, By the time it reaches Delhi, it is already 6th of May in the afternoon around 3 or 3:30 p.m. So if you look at the absolute time difference, if you have taken off at 1:30 p.m. in Chicago on 5th of May and you arrive on 6th of May at 3:30 p.m., you're looking at 26 hours. But did it really take 26 hours to fly from Chicago to Delhi? No, it took the flying, as I told you, the flying hours are only 15 hours. The rest of the time, 26 minus 15 is the time difference between India and Chicago. So basically, India is ahead of Chicago by 10 and a half hours. So that's why by the time the passenger reaches Delhi, it's already 6th May afternoon at around 3:30. Now, look at the other way around. Let us say a passenger is traveling from Delhi to Chicago on the 5th of May. So the flight takes off around 1 a.m. approximately on the 5th of May from Delhi. Again, it takes around flying hours from Delhi to Chicago are a little bit more than 15 hours. It's about 16 hours. So, but by the time the passenger reaches Chicago, it is only 7:30 in the morning on the 5th of May. So, which is basically about 7 hours. Did it really take only 7 hours to fly from Delhi to Chicago? No, it takes a lot more. But again, since US is behind India, so when a passenger takes off on the 5th of May, they arrive on the same day into the US. So hopefully that explains to you why it is important for you to understand the time zones and the time differences. Now let's go to the next topic. Where we're going to discuss the time zones in the US itself. Like I said, there are 4 time zones in the US. And again, let's take an example to illustrate what we are trying to discuss here. Again, let's take somebody taking off from trying to go to Delhi from Los Angeles this time. But they have a connecting point in New York, because Air India does not fly from Los Angeles, it flies from New York. So Air India takes off at 4:30 p.m. from New York to Delhi. So let's say somebody wants to connect from Los Angeles to this particular flight. Now, New York, as I told you, is ahead of Los Angeles by 3 hours. So when it is 4:30 p.m. in New York, it is 3 hours behind, so which is 1:30 p.m. in LA. And the actual flying time between LA to New York is about 5 hours. So if somebody were to arrive exactly at 4:30 p.m. in New York, for example, you have to basically you have to calculate 8 hours. 5 hours is the flying time, and 3 hours is the time difference, 8 hours. So if you remove 8 hours from 4:30 p.m., you're going to look at around 9:30 a.m. If somebody has to be at New York at 4:30, then calculating the 8 hours, they have to leave Los Angeles by 8:30 in the morning, 8:30 a.m. Now, if they leave at 8:30 a.m. from Los Angeles, they will be in New York at 4:30 p.m. But by that time, Air India flight would have already taken off. So we generally try to give at least a minimum of 2 hours connecting time at the connecting point. So somebody has to leave Los Angeles not at 8:30, but actually by 6:30 in the morning, they have to take off from Los Angeles in order to arrive in New York at 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon, New York time, so that they can catch the Air India flight at 4:30 and go to Delhi. So now this example demonstrates to you how important it is for the travel agent to understand the time zones within the US, because If you do not understand the time zones, you cannot do a good job connecting the passengers from city to city.